Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of what might be many Q&A sessions. My name is Kadam Fodder, and today I'm joined by Synn of The Darkcloud.
Hey, what's up, guys?
This is a new format, just to try and be a little bit different. In the background, you will see Synn and Kuro, if this has worked correctly, going at one another hell to leather, which will be on in the background for viewing experiences. However, what we will be doing instead is going through a number of questions, which I'll be asking Synn, just so we get to know a little bit more about him and some of the people behind Third Age.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kuro was supposed to be here as well, but he couldn't make it, so he's gonna have another Q&A session in the future.
And if these pick up enough, then we'll go to other riders maybe if people enjoy them. But just to get things kicking off, we'll go with a nice easy one for Synn, which is what made you start modding?
I believe it was over a decade ago. I was playing Warcraft 3, um, and I was making mini games for their BattleNet, little online mini games. And one of the projects actually was going to be the World of Warcraft style strategy game, but it ended up being so big that it crashed the game, so I had to shut down that project, unfortunately. But it would have been great.
So what you're saying is you could have been the next Doeta.
Yes, exactly. The next Middle Earth Total War style BattleNet game, I guess. Because
Oh, there you
there
go.
were like Total War style games there, so that
No,
was
I,
sort of
I remember the old Warcraft 3 mods. I used to enjoy them. It was kind of
yeah,
what kept me playing.
they were great.
So leading off of that, then, what made you choose Third Age then to sort of start submodding?
Well, I was a big fan of Total War and the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the books, of course. Um, and eventually, after playing video games for many years, I got into the whole modding scene, uh, figuring out that mods existed. um, and yeah, after making a few little mods myself and stuff, I stumbled upon Third Age a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago, something like that. I'm not sure. After 5 to 6 years, I think I got a bit sick of the units. I found DAC, but it was a bit unstable multiplayer wise. Um, so in the end, we decided, something needed to be done, and it's not gonna be done. So while me and Kuro were working on custom scenarios for Third Age with P-Bob, Paladin Bob, we ended up looking in the files and learning sort of what does what, and eventually we started adding little units and stuff to our own little alpha version that we paid by ourselves for our own scenarios. We had our own like friends and stuff. You're one of them, that you know all about it. But yeah, so we'd do that and send the videos to Apollo. He'd get the alpha versions and stuff. This was even before Reforged was a thing. And then eventually we learned like how to do everything and decided, we'll make a little sub mod for multiplayer so that everyone can enjoy it.
Yeah, and you've added a lot of new things with Reforged. So the next question, really, I think, is where do you get your inspiration from for the additions and changes that you make?
Mainly the movies and the books, like the battles, the different units, the cultures that they portray there. But then there's also, of course, fanfic helps us, especially with things like Kand and Umbar and Harad even was helped a lot by fanfic because I mean most factions have a lot of little extra things that weren't added in the movies or the books, but they're fill in the gap kind of things. We just add them in also to fill in the gap of what could be there, what could be missing, also what might be useful for balancing of factions, as long as it kind of fits with the faction. We try to not break the immersion too much, but still like find a happy medium for everything in that sense.
That sounds good. And you spoke before a little bit about Divide and Conquer, which was DAC, which a lot of the original inspiration seemed to come from, as you were saying before, you talked about wanting to have a more multiplayer scene for what is a really kind of a fantastic campaign setting. I was just going to ask, do any of the creators have any involvement or any of the ideas they pass on to yourselves to try and support Reforged, or is a lot of what you do kind of just kind of building on that, and now you're very separate in terms of entities?
Well, they are very supportive of our mod in the sense that they do support it verbally. They have been very happy to let us use all their assets too. improve our multiplayer version of their mod, basically, because our mod is sort of a mix between their mod and the vanilla, um, plus our own addition with, we've added a good 100 units of our own as well and all the maps. But they're very happy, of course, for us to be making a stable multiplayer version of it, because it does also advertise their mod very well in that sense. And they have given us so many assets, so that in itself is a huge help. And
Yeah, and
we're
it's
very
great to see
very
really
thankful
the
for it.
modding community working with one another, because I mean the game's sort of over 10 years old now, I think, and sort of the modding community kind of keep it alive and keep it thriving.
Yeah, exactly.
This might be a little bit similar to the inspiration question, but kind of your background with Kuro and with Bebop has been a lot about making scenarios, and in many respects you still do a lot of them. But where do you get your ideas from for the scenarios?
A lot of them usually we get from the movies and the books, the battles that are there. Also, just some that are talked about. We'll have to fill in the gaps of how they could work out, and also some what-if scenarios of what could have happened in certain situations. But then we also come up with some alternate universe style themes, where some factions who shouldn't be fighting each other do. But those are just for fun, and you know, it's a video game, so in the end you can sort of do whatever kind of ends up being cool in the end.
Yeah,
But yeah, also we got a lot of our inspiration from, I think, art and different cultures from the real world and history, historical battles. There's a lot of different things combined, and just different sceneries even can help uh, give you an idea of how a battle could be, and then you just use whatever factions kind of seem right for that.
that sounds good. A sort of building off that, then you talked about obviously it is a video game. We discussed very briefly it was 10 years old, but is there any limitations that within the game itself, which means you can't take Reforged to the level you wanted to? So is there anything that you wanted to be able to do with Reforged, but the limitations of the game is preventing that?
Well, the one biggest thing I'd want is for there to be a new Medieval 2 HD version to come out, where basically they would add like 10 times the amount of unit capability that the engine could run. That would allow for much more epic battles, and that's really what I think the game is missing, if anything. But I'm very content with the amount of units we can use, at least, and still a lot.
Yeah, I think some of the units we've got up to, I think we've done a relatively stable battle up to it's like 28k or something bizarre like that at one point.
And it was pretty smooth, even
It
for
was
that.
pretty smooth. You do need a good PC for being a rider of the
But
Reforged.
I really want there to be hundreds of thousands on the field. That's what my dreams of Total War
In
titles.
VR as well, just to add to it.
That's not so important, but yeah, that would be cool.
Moving a bit more to talk about the mod itself, then, and your personal experiences. What would you say was your, alongside the launch of 0.9, which brought out a few more factions? What would you say is your favorite faction and why?
It's a good one. I mean, I do like most factions, like 90% of them, such as like Dol Amroth, the Elves, Arnor, Gundabad. I mean, they're all really cool, but I think my favorite would probably have to be Rune, just because they're just the most badass in my opinion. They're like evil, but not necessarily full evil, but they're just like very aggressive style faction, and I like that about them. I like how they look.
With the gold armor.
Yeah, and they have three of the units that I really like. Actually, yeah, the Dragon's Wrath crossbows, Camel's Chosen, and Camel's Dragon Knights. Those are probably the biggest reasons I like that faction the most.
Well, I mean, that kind of leads us on to the next question, really, which is kind of what was your favorite addition to the mod, either sort of a unit you added or otherwise. So, what would you say was something that you most enjoyed about seeing for the first time once it was introduced?
I'd say those three units I mentioned are definitely there, but I think it's not just one unit. There's quite a few there. I'd probably also like to give mentions to Nurad Windblades, the Dale Dragon Slayers, the big, huge swords. The Warlords of Umbar, they're a cool cav unit for Umbar. And the Harbingers of Castamere as well, they're pretty cool. And also the Melkor's Chosen, I really like them because we introduced the Karagors with them. And I thought that was a cool addition.
I was going to say, a lot of people probably haven't seen the Karagors yet, actually. So
Yes, check out the new Melkor's Chosen. They have really cool mounts.
yeah, some people may be hearing that for the first time if they haven't seen it. We'll have to try and maybe get them into a scenario at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Talking about So we talked about the release of 0.9, so we're getting closer and closer to the 1.0 release. So in theory, what's next for Reforged? Is it now just balancing, or do you still have ideas of things you want to build and introduce before the full release?
I mean, of course, we'll still be balancing until release, until it's perfect, but it's pretty close to finalized now, the balancing. We're just finding little adjustments here and there, and of course, we will be adding around 3 or 4 new factions, so we'll have to balance those as well into the mod properly, which will take a bit of time as well. But yeah, those 3 factions will be Rudauer, Dol Guldur, and the Dwarves of Ered Luin. And then we'll also be adding some Linden Elves to fill out the High Elf roster. Just 3 or 4 units.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like quite a lot. It sounds like you're going to have some 0.95s and 0.97s to introduce a lot of these things.
We will be probably one at a time. So.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't wait to see them released. So we talked a lot about the scenarios, which is the kind of the background for a lot of how people probably know of Reforged. And sort of the big question really is, we do a lot of scenarios for YouTube. When you play them, how much is it about trying to win the battle, and how much is it about making it cinematic for a good replay? A lot of times you'll see in the comments about people sort of challenging strategy or the units taken or how they're used.
Yeah. I mean, we're usually trying to win, of course. I mean, as the scenarios are usually balanced very well, so people will try to win. Just because also they want to look good online, you know. Even if you tell them not to, they'll still try and play as good as they can. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of cheese that is tolerated. Like, we don't approve of camping a mountain or anything like that. But the only time the defensive players are usually accepted is when it's intended for the scenario to have a defensive role on one of the sides. Like, usually a commander will have a role, and that is sort of the script of the battle. But what they do with that role, that's up to them, and therefore the outcome of the battle is not determined at all. And yeah, so it really just depends on the players and what they do. Sometimes there's a lot of salt, I guess you can say, and it can deter you from doing your best just because you feel pity on your opponent. I mean, it's happened a lot, like where someone will be salty and then you'll play a bit worse for their sake, but it doesn't happen often.
Yeah, I think I remember what is the battle at Isengard where I was all by my lonesome and the constant cav charges kind of got on my nerves a bit. You can see that on Indie Pride's channel, in fact, me getting absolutely decimated, but it's quite a norm for me. But no, I mean, I think I agree with you. I mean, it's not like we go into separate chat channels when we do them or anything like that. So
Yeah.
To be like super sneaky.
No,
Moving on then, for some of the people watching who may be sort of inspired by Reforged, like if people wanted to get into sort of modding medieval Total War, like what kind of suggestions would you have for them? What kind of advice or tips?
I would probably suggest to start with making custom scenarios. That's where we started. Although I did have a bit of modding experience in the past, it was mainly units and easier engines than Medieval 2. But once you start doing custom scenarios, you start getting a little bit of a feel for sort of the edge of it, the tip of modding, and then you kind of just work your way into finding tutorials online on how to use programs that you'll need for the more intricate things like making units or factions, or the different writing in the game, the UI, unit cards, all that kind of stuff. You would have to watch and read tutorials on that, YouTube videos. Probably also good to use Milkshape, which you have to pay for in order to use properly. It's not that expensive; it's like $25. And then also Paint.net, which is good for texturing, but Milkshape is good for modeling. So those are the two softwares that we use for modding.
On my side, I know nothing about modding, so I'm just nodding and smiling. As
What's important is that you read and watch tutorials, because they're very clear. I mean, it's going to be a bit hard for me to explain everything here, So my advice would be to go look at tutorials on Google. It should be easy to find as long as you type in the right thing. Just how to make models for Medieval 2, Milkshape, that kind of stuff. You should run into something.
Yeah, and I think I've been talking with a couple of the other devs as well, who we've been able to bring on board to support Kuro and Synn, so they're not on their lonesome. And I think some of them are interested in maybe doing some sort of dev diary where they may also show a little bit more in depth in the regard of what we do. But
Yeah, I
no
think
promises on that just yet.
Carandel wanted to make something like that, right?
Yeah, I believe so. So hopefully for people watching, we may be able to release some things to help inspire people, to help them see how we do things behind the scenes. I say we in the royal sense because I don't do any of that. Okay, following on that then, let's say that you're a new player. So a lot of people have found out and discovered Reforged through, say, Pixelated Apollo or Indie Pride, and they've come through to the channel, but they're a new player. So what kind of suggestions would you have for them to improve or to get better? Because there is a little bit of a skill gap there in some respects.
Oh, of course, everyone has to start somewhere. So definitely practice, a lot of practice, because there's the whole macro thing, learning how the game works, the keys and everything. That's very important. But aside from that, I would suggest reading Sun Tzu, The Art of War, because that gives you a very abstract way of thinking about fighting on the battlefield, and it can be implemented. Some of these strategies can be implemented in medieval too, because it is a simulation of warfare in that sense. So I would advise to read that. I'd also advise to read the Kingdom manga, because it has a lot of battles. It's like basically a manga all about war in China, and they have a lot of crazy tactics, which I actually use a lot in medieval when I play Reforged. So I do suggest to read those things. Also watch a lot of war movies, everything that can inspire you from stories or whatnot, real strategies from history. All those things can be very useful in games. So just study, practice, and then that should help.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think also don't be afraid to try new things as well.
Oh, yeah, and if you want some little tactics, maybe little tips, I'd say, if you do an assault, it's best to use all your units in that assault so that they can't focus down what you're assaulting with. That way you take them at full force and they're forced to deal with you in a balanced manner, and that way you don't take too many casualties in your assault. So that therefore cover your assault with your archers and your cavalry. Protect your army with your cavalry. Use your cavalry. Your cavalry is very important, because if you lose that and the enemy still has cavalry and you don't have pikes or anything, then it's going to be very hard battle for you. So your cavalry is very important. Flanking the enemy is important. Surrounding them is important. All these things are very important, and just make sure you practice your macro, basically.
Yeah, and also think as well, if is watching videos about how the other people play and what kind of styles they use as well. It's a lot easier, I guess, to view other people's decisions than it is to sometimes make it in the heat of battle. So if you watch other videos and see how other people sort of, I guess, negate problems or engage in different ways, that can sometimes help as well if you're a new player.
Yeah, I mean, it's also hard to predict what your opponent's going to do. Your strategy can very much depend on what you're predicting your opponent's going to do. So it's and what they're going to bring to the field as well. So that's also a very important aspect of the battlefield.
Moving on then, we touched on this a little bit before, and I think possibly this might have some similar answers that we had previously. But have you worked on anything else mod related? Have you, besides let's say besides Warcraft 3, have you done any other modding that we may not know of?
Yeah, I did work on some other Total War engines like Rome 2, Attila, Warhammer. I just made some private campaign mods for Rome 2. I made also for the public. I made 2 factions, Thessalia and Phoenicia. Phoenicia is like an Assyrian colony, so I made 2 different factions with all the units for them, and I released that. It was pretty successful. That was pretty much my first proper experience with more professional mod in that sense. And then I moved on to Warhammer, where I just made some private units again for my own use, and then after that went on to Reforged, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess if people are also interested in other mods, I would highly recommend the Warhammer mod for Medieval. I think it's very good and very well done, actually. I think in some respects I prefer it slightly more to the Warhammer game they did release.
Oh, yes. I wasn't actually referring to the Warhammer mod. I was working on the Warhammer game and was making some private little mods on that.
Oh,
but yeah,
right,
the
my
Warhammer
apologies.
mod definitely for Medieval 2 is a very great mod. They even won the most artistic mod of the year award, I think, last year. So yeah, there you have it. It's a great game, very visually stunning. Can only recommend it.
And again, I think Indie Pride has done a couple of battles. So if you are interested to see a little bit more about it, head over to Indie Pride's, I think, Milk and Cookies channel, and you should be
Cookies
able to
Total
find him
War,
up
yeah.
on there. Yeah. And then you touched very briefly on Attila. Now, a lot of people watching this may have probably seen from the likes of Jackie Fish or Pixie that there is seemingly a mod being produced. Although how far through that is, I'm slightly unsure. We do see little bits and tidbits here and there of the rise of Mordor in
Ah, yeah.
Attila. Do you think that you might do anything in Attila along those lines? And
I
if
don't know. I
not, why
mean,
not?
I kind of worked with those engines before, and they're not really that optimized. It's kind of a pain to use them, in my opinion, and I'm much more comfortable with the Medieval 2 engine. However, once Bannerlord comes out, I think we do plan to move over there and start making some mods for that, because that engine seems very nice, and they do seem very mod friendly.
Oh, well, there you go. Heard it here first. Bannerlord, possibly a new future avenue for Reforged.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I have now. What I would say is if anyone does have any questions going forward, please place them in the comments below. I'm sure that any questions from the community that we can answer, we will answer, and the intention is to do this again with Kuro, either with the same questions or different ones. So please feel free to submit and like and subscribe. I suppose one last thing from me, I suppose, is do you have any questions you want to ask me at all, Synn?
Yes, I was about to say, yeah, I had a few questions I had prepared. So I'll just start asking. So one of them would be, why do you play Reforged?
Oh
Out of
wow.
curiosity.
A few reasons really. Wow. Okay, so starting off with the big guns. I play Reforged. I've always been a Lord of the Rings fan. Partly I remember as a young kid not actually really enjoying the Lord of the Rings books. I have to admit, I found them quite long and very big in
Fair
saying a
enough.
lot of songs that sometimes took several pages. But
Yeah.
The Hobbit for me, when I was in my early teens, was a really great read. I think I was about 11 when I first read The Hobbit. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And then by the time I think I was about 14, I guess that's when the movies sort of really started to come out. And I've always been a Sean Bean fan and a fantasy fan in general. And I guess the visuals and Lord of the Rings itself just something really kind of took. But added to that, I've always been a Total War fan, so it melded quite well. And I remember watching sort of Apollo's videos when yourself and P-Bob first started submitting them, and it kind of mesmerized me a bit. And I was really excited to see how you could take sort of I guess the original medieval and turn it into such a fantastic visual I guess game which really was the first time I could see how far modding could really go.
I see. All right, all right. Um, how did you encounter the Reforged team?
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a stroke of fortunate luck on my behalf. So I was on Pixelated Apollo's Discord, and I believe at the time Kuro had just placed up a message. I can't even remember why I was on Discord at the time. I think it was just randomly there. I think I was getting ready for something else, for maybe part of one of my
An event or something?
yeah, an event or maybe Roll20. I use it for some role playing. But Kuro asked if there was anyone who was free to play a battle, and I sort of jumped at the chance. I think less than like maybe 5 seconds after he posted it, and lo and behold, I got dragged into a TeamSpeak where I think you sent me like 7 files with big descriptions about how to input them and do them, and I'd never played an online battle, let alone downloaded Third Age. I had no idea about any of these things. All I ever
Oh,
seen was the videos. And the first battle I had to do was the maze battle. And those who have seen Pixelated or haven't seen it yet, you can go and watch me get absolutely creamed. Like everything that could have gone wrong in this maze battle did. So
yeah, that was a fun one.
I was left this last faction, and it was Rune, and I thought, oh, amazing, they're being really nice to me, giving me Rune. I thought I was really chuffed because I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew how Rune played. And then the battle opens, and everyone else as a faction can turn left or right as they go hunting for these trolls, basically, in this giant maze. But my faction starts in a really awkward position where they can only go in one direction. So I turn down this one direction I could head, and lo and behold, do I find Synn waiting for me with like freaking like beefed up elves, and every time I thought that I was gonna flank Synn to try and do something useful, like Kuro had all of these like permanently ambushed units of goblins all around this bloody maze, and every time I went down any of these freaking corridors where Synn wasn't, a goblin unit would come out and jump me, and the entire battle was just me getting creamed. And at the end, I remember having like one archer unit and my general's unit. I was desperately trying to kill some trolls, and then Synn just charged me down. But you know, obviously I did something right because I got to stick around and do slightly better in other battles, I suppose.
Is that where you got the name Cannon Fodder?
It is not actually. So my name of Cannon Fodder comes back from Aliens vs Predator 2. I know.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, like a lot of people. So I have this ongoing thing because I used to do, or I still do, Call to Arms, and that was on Napoleonic. That's with Pixie, and there's somebody else who is seemingly is relatively well known within the servers called Cannon Fodder, which makes it a bit difficult when you take a term like this. But I actually had the name back from Aliens vs Predator 2 when I was quite young, and I remember originally I had the name as all young teenagers do, thinking they're really witty and wise, of like using hicks, because I thought, oh, I use a name from the movie. Nobody would have done that, and lo and behold, I'd go onto a server and sort of a good 15 out of the 30 people.
You found your nemesis.
Yeah, they all got names of brilliant characters from the movie. So,
I mean, in many games I play, I encounter different like sins and stuff, and I get very defensive.
So yeah, so I changed myself to Cannon Fodder because no one else had that one, and I thought I was being quite witty. And again, I think my love of Sean Bean was kind of showing then. I think I was watching Sharp quite heavily at the time, and I think the term came up there, and I thought it had a good ring to it. So, and I also remember playing the Cannon Fodder computer game really young back in the day with the little troops. Although I can't remember too much about it.
Oh, don't think I've ever played that.
Oh, it's a very old game, so probably before your time. But
Nice.
yeah, it was good fun. And yes, I've had the name really since Aliens vs Predator 2. So and the name kind of just stuck really.
I see. All right. Another question would be, why do you come for his YouTube channel, and what do you enjoy about it?
Oh, so I kind of really fell into it, I suppose. So back when the Discord first launched to the public, we had a sort of a tournament we tried to set up, which for those who were involved with it, they had to be quite, I guess, patient with us, I suppose, as we probably rushed out the tournament a bit quicker than we should have. But we had the idea of trying to stream it for people because we only had so many places, and actually we had quite a lot of people sign up to play. But we didn't have enough room for everybody, so we decided that streaming it would be quite good, and we tried to get as many people as possible to organize sort of Twitch and stuff. But unfortunately, due to just people like sickness and otherwise, very few people were able to do so, and I think I was one of the few that was really able to get it up and running. And then after that, it felt like there was a possibility there to do a little bit more. And to begin with, it started off with putting a little bit on my own channel, which kind of got a little bit of exposure, but it didn't really get to the level we wanted, and we weren't really, I suppose, getting much in the way of content we could use, as most of the best stuff we were sending to larger YouTubers, quite rightly, who have supported us in the past. And then when we started to set up our sort of own channel, it was kind of like, put up your hands if you want to do it. And I was like, kind of, I think one of the few, if not the only person that said that they were happy to do it and do it on their lonesome, and kind of went from there. And then we grew, bringing in sort of other members like J Monster and other people like that who were YouTubers in their own right and far more experienced than myself. In regards to what I enjoy about it, I enjoyed a few things. I mean, to be honest, I can talk for England and Britain, so I have no problem with talking for long periods of time. But I do sort of find it enjoyable. For those that do watch my videos, I try and take a slightly more tactical view about things that I might do differently, and other things that I would possibly do in similar positions, just to try and give it a little bit of an edge.
A bit of armchair general.
Yeah, I mean, you know, try and show that I'm not as shit as perhaps my name might indicate, and some of the scenarios might show me as being, I suppose.
On a lighter note, what's your favorite unit and faction in Reforged?
Ooh, tough one. So my favorite unit, I probably have two. One which is the sort of the troll men. I always did love the troll men. I think that visually they looked fantastic. I like the fact that they can chant, and also they're really powerful. Like I used to love using troll men because when they had the armor piercing and they had good sized numbers of units, they had a shield. Like admittedly, Archer Fire was a bit of a problem for them, but that extra HP kind of really
Yeah.
helped. And I used to love charging in these sort of screaming troll men. So they're really good, and I just like the aesthetics of them. But my other favorite one, which is I suppose more what people would consider a sort of a cannon fodder unit, is the Snagger Javies, and I always used to like them because they have a relatively good damage. It may have changed to 0.9, so I apologize if this is wrong, but it used to be like 13 damage armor piercing, and you had a large number of them which had relatively good ammo. Now they were completely trash in melee, but if you could get them throwing, and you could have a relatively good sort of line of just kind of trash units, they could do some serious damage. And
Oh
13
yeah.
AP is nothing to sort of it's nothing to dismiss. It was quite good, and
They're
I always
very
found
good
them
for the
quite interesting for
constant.
the price. You could really flood the battlefield with them.
Yeah, definitely.
And for
And
those that
your
do
favorite
play,
faction?
oh sorry, oh yeah, I was going to say, those who do play 0.9, there is a Snaga Skirmisher Warg unit as well, which has even
Ah,
more armor-piercing damage. Although after they've thrown their javies, they're pretty trash. In terms of faction, I do like Harad. Now that might be trying to slightly changing though, since Harad got and Umber got split. It's a difficult choice for me. Because Umber does have some fantastic units, really great looking. I mean, you talked about the Castamere units in the past. And I really love like the sort of emblem that they have on their chest. I do like sort of the way visually speaking they look. I've always had a sort of a bit of a soft spot for the pirate faction and the Corsairs, but Harad's like Harad's a little, just I suppose a little bit more colourful for me. And who doesn't like Mummikill? I mean, how could you not enjoy having giant elephants at your disposal?
yeah, I'm on a Clopi.
Hey,
As
unless
long as there's no
javelins are thrown at them.
ballista, sorry,
If
yeah,
I'm
Javis
sorry,
and
but
ballista.
Javi's thrown at Mummikill wipe them out in seconds, and it always upsets
Definitely.
me.
Crossbows are pretty good as well against them.
That's true.
Yeah. Um. All right. What's your favorite scenario you played and why?
Oh, I think my favorite scenario was the retaking of Moria, which is one of Kuro's. Sorry, Sen, but there's two reasons I like it, and one of them isn't so good for Kuro. So. For those of you that don't know, we sometimes redo these scenarios several times. Although, admittedly, for Sins of late, we've done it once, and that's sort of in the bag then, and we can release it. But in the past, we used to take a little bit of time sort of balancing them out. And there's a fabled story. Ask me again another time about Annuminous, although I'm sure other people will reference the horror that was Annuminous many times to come. But one of them we did was with the retaking of Moria, and Kuro had set up this huge battle. Like it was meant to start outside and then move inside, and we had hordes and hordes and hordes. And the very first time we did it, I don't know if you remember, Sin, but sort of the goblins were so trash, they were so terrible
Yeah.
that you didn't even need tactics as the dwarves. You could just walk them forward, and their sheer weight and muscle just pushed through, killing. And I think it was something ridiculous, like 15,000 dead goblins to like 500 dwarves. It was
Yeah.
absolutely mental. So it was just hilarious to watch these dwarves just not be stopped and just walk through the front gate of Moria without even blinking. And then then what happened was that Kuro sort of changed it out, made it a bit
Yeah,
different, gave us
rebalanced it.
some more berserkers, and actually gave us crossbow units as well. Like we had like really shit like archers, but we actually got crossbows for the second time. And for those that haven't seen it, again, this is one that's on Pixies, but you might notice if you're keen-eyed that we actually put a different captain in each of the rooms of Moria. So as the dwarves come through, they're kind of all little mini bosses, and they kind of make their last stand as they try and hold on. But the most hilarious bit was at the very end. So Sin's army had gone down, if I remember rightly, down to 2 reclaimers. These 2
Yeah.
final axes, which Sin was calling like Philly and Killy. And he sent them forward, and the last sort of defense of Moria was Kuro-chan's like a final elite, and they were in this like final throne room just after sort of in the area, and I remember these two running down the corridor, and Kuro didn't want to come out from where he was because he set up quite a nice defense, and the dwarves still had quite a lot of crossbows. And anyway, Philly and Killy by themselves go charging down the middle of this corridor and start throwing their throwing axes. And every throw was a kill on Kuro's elites. And he was getting really upset and salty about it. And every time he tried to move his units forward, you would just run them back into the safety of the crossbows.
Well, they even ended up charging me completely in the end, and my guys were running away like, like cinematic style, like they were like inches away from reaching them.
And I'm pretty sure they survived as well.
Yeah, I think one of them survived.
So spoilers there, I suppose, slightly, but it was quite epic. Like, it was relatively close. I think it was down to maybe 2% left in the end, and it's well worth a watch. It's quite a long battle, actually. It's quite a lot of units on the battlefield.
It was a great
quite
battle.
fun. So yeah, I'd say that was probably my favourite scenario. But I did enjoy, as much as it took ages, the visual look of when we did Minas Tirith. I think it was like it was like a benchmark or a milestone for Pixie.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite visual battle as well.
And it was really
just that
great.
tab charge was so like epic.
Yeah, for those that didn't know, we had to so the first time round we had the main assault, so we obviously destroying walls and stuff. And yes, for those who are lore friendly, that destroying the walls of Minas Tirith is easier said than done. But we did that as a dusk battle, and then we reset the map all over again and did a morning battle and rechanged all the units, and then we went around blowing up the same siege towers and blowing up the same walls in the same places, and it took ages and ages and ages, so long. But it really paid off for when those charges happened with the Mumakil and the Riders of Rohan and things.
It looked great. That was one of the few battles that we actually didn't like, where we scripted pretty much the outcome and just to make it extra cinematic. But that was like just for that milestone that Apollo had on his channel, so it was a special in that sense. We don't.
Yeah, and I remember it was like 3 in the morning, and I remember me getting really like salty with Miles. And I remember really like, I think it was Timo. For those of you who don't know him, he's another sort of developer. He had like a problem with his, like, he kept like desyncing, and everyone kept thinking it was me because the game keeps saying it was me desyncing out. And we spent ages just trying to work out what the hell was going on and stuff. It was quite fun.
I have one more question for you. That would be, what would you want to see from Reforged in the future?
What would I want to see from Reforged in the future? Well, some of them we touched on briefly. So with the creation of the Karagor, I was always very interested in the Shadow of Mordor game. Perhaps like after maybe playing 3 hours, I got a bit bored of just killing orcs over and over, and they were mainly a mild nuisance. But I really liked the inspiration of the concept of the Black Gate being held by the Rangers. I mean, it feels a bit strange, but sometimes you talk to people about the game and they forget that actually the Black Gate was originally like Gondor's gate to keep Mordor all inside, and like, we actually the units there. So I really would like to see maybe some more influences in that. But in the same sense, I also like maybe rolling back the timeline, sort of going back to maybe the Last Alliance, or seeing more of the Númenóreans in their golden armor when they like literally walked into Mordor and Sauron had to like surrender to them because they were like humans plus, and they were so amazing before they were corrupted that they were just unstoppable, and everyone just bowed down to them because they were so amazing. And maybe seeing some of those sort of like the I guess it's the first and second ages.
Yeah. No, I mean, we did actually add one unit inspired by a unit from Shadow of Mordor. That was the Gatekeepers of the Black Gate. But they have now become the Minas Ithil Wardens. We've changed their concept in the end, but they were inspired from that unit that you showed us. So
yeah,
it's somewhat.
And hopefully maybe I'll get to see the scenario for the defense of the Black Gate, and we can see how long the Rangers can hold off the forces, or not, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm. That's all the questions I have, I think, listed here.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the only other thing I would say is that sometimes people ask me why I play so aggressively sometimes in the videos. I guess coming back to what we were talking about in terms of the do we play to win or do we play for visuals? Yeah, I mean, the Cannon Fodder name may not come from Third Age, but I would certainly say I guess I kind of live up to it for the scenarios. There's a few reasons really. Partly it's the entertainment value, like there's nothing more boring than watching choke points or just two armies just sit looking at each other and do nothing but fire artillery until the artillery runs out, and then fire arrows until the arrows run out, and then they just sit there in a boxed form. Like, my personal opinion, I know that me and Kuro disagree about the concept of boxing up, but I don't like boxing up. I think it's just dull as hell.
Yeah.
And someone's got to be the first into the battle, and sometimes it really pays off. Like, for those who may have seen the most recent video, there was sort of Arnor's sort of defense against Gundabad, and I saw an opportunity where Happy Meal hadn't stretched his lines properly, and I was able to get some units up and around and back. And sometimes people don't expect seeing the charge, and also for a scenario, you really want the pace to always be sort of cracking the whip, because it's meant to be for a viewer. But I don't always try and play crap. Sometimes it's just a necessity, and I think we did one with Pixie, which was where I played as, I think it was Dale actually, and I think I held off an entire army of Mordor that charged me. So it's not always that way, but sometimes.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Synn, and thank you for agreeing to do the interview, and hopefully those watching have enjoyed it.
And I hope you enjoyed the battle in the background.
Yeah. I heard it's pretty epic, so especially towards the end. So if it was a boring Q&A, at least you got to see a good battle going on.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, and yeah, see you guys.